Gabriel, and I'm here to take you through rhythm. So for Delphic rhythm in the lower primary, we just enjoy the rhythm. We clap, we use shakers, we use everything, rhythm instruments to create songs, to create rhythms, to accompany songs. It's mostly about performance. Now, when we get to the upper primary, we need to use rhythm where we can create our own rhythms where anyone else can perform them because we have notated these rhythms and we use this and we notate these rhythms using the standard notation which is provided by musicians all over the world. So if you compose your rhythm, anyone around the world can play that rhythm. So without further ado, I'm going to share my slide where I'll take you through some of the definitions already my colleague has mentioned, where the beat and the pulse. Now we want to, how do we identify these rhythms? How does a learner understand? First of all, I like to say that for easier understanding of rhythms, kindly be asking learners to always use melodies. Melodies are much easier to understand rhythm and interpret rhythms compared to when you use rhythm in monotone. So it's better for learners to be able to identify more rhythms, kindly be using melodies. The challenge which we have, our local songs and our common songs have very complex rhythms. So I'll urge you to refrain from that because the rhythms are quite complex. So maybe we use rhythms which the learners are used to, simple songs. So I hope everyone can see my shared document. Now,
sorry, Gabriel, to interrupt a little. The participants are requesting that you raise your volume a little.
I raise my volume. Yeah. Thank you. No worries. Let me do that. Good. Can they hear me now?
Yep. Let's wait for their feedback.
Okay. I hope they can hear me now.
Yes, continue.
Okay. And is my screen sharing okay? Everyone can read what is in my screen?
Yes, we can read what's in your screen.
Thank you. Oh, good. Sorry for that. My apologies for that. I hope now everyone is hearing me clearly. I was saying, for learners to be able to easily interpret rhythms, there is need for us to be using simple melodies rather than just playing rhythms on monotone. We have to use melodies, like my colleague was using the melodies, was using the shakers. That is a rhythm in monotone. It's very difficult for a learner to identify a rhythm which goes beyond a crochet in monotone. So we basically use melodies. So because my colleague has done that, I'll go straightly to the note values in music. And this is the duration that a note is sounded, the duration in which a note is sounded, so that we can have pa, 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 ri, pa, pa. You see that one? I've varied the duration of my rhythm so that we have to have clear standard for how long, for how many counts are this rhythm, for how long are we holding this note. And in the upper primary, we will be required to also learn the note symbols, the note symbol of this French rhythm name. And they include for the crochet, they include for the pair of quavers, we also have the meaning, we have a dotted meaning, and also we have a semi-brief. For easy understanding of these rhythms, the French rhythms might be too advanced for the learner because the crochet beat is only one count. Ta, 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 ta. So you as the teacher need to you need to find a substitute for this French rhythm which will be easily appeal to the learner. And as you can see, for the word ta has one syllable. So you kindly just replace it with a word which has one syllable. So as they clap the rhythm, they also say the words. And that one will build up on their competencies of self-efficacy, learning to learn. It will be making it very interactive. So as they clap ta, ta, they can also be chanting words which have one syllable. They can be chanting dog, 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 mom, mom, dad, dad. You see, that way they'll always remember the duration of a crochet is always one count, and it can easily be used with words which have one syllable. We move on to the next rhythm, which is a pair of quavers. A pair of quavers, now we have divided the crochet into two half equal beats. Now we have two half equal beats. In the French rhythm, they will use the word ta te, ta te, ta te, ta te, ta te. Again, that may be too advanced for our learners. So you can substitute the tate with words which have two syllables. Pa, pi, pa, pi, pa, pi, pa, pi. And as you can see, I'm also using the head because music rhythm is always wholesome. And this is where Africans we thrive because we are very flexible. We cannot teach rhythm without body movement. So teachers, ensure when you teach rhythm, you're also using a lot of body movements so that learners can easily grasp the concept. So tate, you can always substitute even with other words which have two syllables, mama, papa, and this will make the learners to always remember the duration of a pair of quavers. Moving on swiftly, we have the minim as our next note. The minim note is a duration of 2 counts, and it does not mean I clap it twice. It means I hold the note, like if I was, like my colleague was saying, if I was hooting the car, I hoot it for 2 counts. Beep. I hoot it for 2 counts. That is what the minim note is applied. So here the minim also has 1 syllable, but remember, you can ask learners, there is a way. If you hoot for long, it has a meaning. If you hoot for short, it also has a meaning. And for us learners, and for the learners also, when they use the word mom, if they call mom for long or for short, it also has its own meaning. If they use just mom in 1 syllable, that is a very serious statement that the daughter or son wants to make. But if they call you using mom, you see that one, it's prolonged. So you can tell you, when do we use these long rhythms? Make it as much practical as possible for the learners so that they apply these rhythms in their day-to-day life. So if the French rhythm is not working for the learners, kindly substitute them with words which they normally use in their conversation. The next note values which we have the dotted meaning. A dot, for them, the learners at this level, they do not require to know what a dot does, but for you as a teacher, you need to know that a dot just prolongs the value of a rhythm with half of its original value. So if I had 2, I prolong with half. If I had 1, I prolong with a half. So the value of the dot is to prolong a rhythm with half of its original value. So in the dotted meaning, we have the French rhythm name of ta, 3 counts. So if you are hooting, you hoot for 3 counts. If you are calling mom or dad, you call dad for 3 counts. Mom, dad. And surely learners will be able to remember these rhythms quite easily. The next rhythm I want us to go to is the semi-brief, and a semi-brief, the duration of a semi-brief is 4 counts long. The duration of a semi-brief is 4 counts long. Remember, just 1 word syllable and tell the learners to hold it for 4 counts. Ta, ta. But they can substitute it with 1 word with 1 syllable for easier understanding for the learners. Moving on, also in music, we have something called rest, because rest is where we take a pause. Even normally when learners speak, you cannot speak throughout. You need to be able to take a pause and catch your breath and drink some water or something. So the same way in music, it is impractical for us to sing from 10 minutes without non-stop. We need to take a rest where we can catch our breath. So music, also in rhythm, silence is part of music. Silence is part of music and rest are important. So for every note value we learned, there's also a corresponding rest of similar value and duration. So if we have a one count of ta, we also have a silence of ta. Remember the silence, you can use it with body movements. When you have a rest, you can nod your head, you can bend. You as a teacher, you can vary how you use it and make it as much interactive as possible. So for every note, there's a silence which follows it. And here I can show you the symbols and plus the count of everything. The first note is the semibrieve, and we can see the rest symbol of the semibrieve. So as the semibrieve has 4 counts, also it has an equal number of rests. The rest symbol is there, a rest which also values at 4 counts. The next rest symbol is that of the minim, and the minim rest, we can see the symbol of the minim there, and it also has 2 counts. My next symbol is that of a crochet rest. You can see they are very difficult to draw, but I believe music teachers, we are all artists, and there's no art which is separated from the other, so I'm sure you can draw the crochet rest symbol quite well. And next I have the rest symbol for the quiver. You can see the quiver, which is the half beat. Yeah, remember the rest also carries the same value of note as the original note. It's only that in the rest it's a silence. So if you have a minim rest, you are silent for 2 counts. You have a crochet rest, you are silent for 1 count. You have a quiver rest, you are silent for a half a count. You have a dotted minim rest, you are silent for 3 counts. At the end of the day, as learners have learned now how to draw these symbols and they've learned the French rhythms, learners will be required to create short rhythms, which are very catchy, which are very memorable, and which have symmetry. Because in music we have symmetry, everything has to be measured and regular. So moving on swiftly on how they'll use this to create the rhythm, we go to something called the beat pattern. Because these notes cannot just exist on their own, they have to be grouped and to make a musical sense. Because music, as my colleague has said, there's a metronome and there's a pulse. There's a heartbeat between every music. You play a music, you automatically identify there's a constant beat which is always driving through the music as it goes on. So the first beat pattern I want us to learn is called the 2-beat pattern. The 2-beat pattern, which basically means that the notes are kind of grouped in twos. When you get note values which make 2 beats, you group them together, and you ensure that as learners create the rhythms, that these rhythms have order and symmetry, where there's consistency. There's consistency in the beat patterns in that rhythm. So the 2-beat pattern is the basic beat pattern which exists in music. Most common songs like Lightly Raw, they're in 2-beat pattern. We also have Maua Mazuri ya Pendeza, it's also in 2/4. So you can use those songs and identify the 2/4. Let me see if I can play a song in 2/4 and you can easily identify how these beat patterns used to drive the music. So a minute, I share an audio. Could you hear my audio? Was my sharing audible?
Yes, it was.
It was audible. So you can clearly hear it from the melody 1 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So in music which is in 2-beat pattern, we have to hear that the 1, 2, and ensure that the learners are able to identify the strong beat in a 2-beat pattern, where the 1, they can say it with more emphasis. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And with this, the learners will be able to create rhythms in 2-beat pattern and arrange rhythms which make logical sense. Moving on swiftly, we also have the next beat pattern, which is the 3-beat pattern. And for the 3-beat pattern, we ensure that learners are able to group the music like in 3 counts. When they have, so the music is grouped in 3s, where we have strong, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And you can use common examples of songs which are in 3-beat pattern, so that where the learners can be able to hear clearly that the line strong, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak. And when they sing these songs in the 3-beat pattern, ensure also the learners are able to project and also to put more emphasis on the strong beat, so that everyone can be able to feel the 3-beat pattern in a melody or in a song. The most common song in 3-beat pattern is Silent Night, and when they sing it, you have to ensure that they come in strongly in the first beat. So when you explain it to learners with a lot of accent, with a lot of body movement, they surely understand the beat patterns. And when they create the rhythm will be in a logical and a symmetrical manner. The next thing I want to mention is the 4-beat pattern. There are 4-beat pattern where the notes are grouped in 4s in the manner of strong, weak, 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 strong, weak, 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 strong, weak, weak, weak. And with this grouping, this is the most, even sometimes it is referred to as common time. Most songs which we hear have this grouping of 4/4, and you can easily tell that the music is in 1, 2, 3, and 4, in 1, 2, 3, and 4. So even as the learners write this rhythm, they compose these rhythms, the learners should be able to group the notes in a 4. Once they have a note which they have a rhythm which creates the 4 counts, they group them together and that way. So, and it will be creating rhythms which make sense and which have logic and symmetry. After all this, the learners also need to perform their rhythms. They need to perform their rhythms. They can clap, they can tap, they can also improvise on a percussion instrument or use body percussion. Always encourage learners to maintain a steady tempo as they clap the beat, because learners can easily lose the count and lose the pulse of the beat, and they may not be sure on how to identify a rhythm of a song. So basically, for them to identify the rhythm of a song, always ensure that you give them the steady pulse of the music, by which they are going to identify the rhythm of the song. Always give them a steady pulse, and learners need to maintain it throughout the end of the melody. Like I can play another melody where we'll still hear that the song, first I start with the metronome, so that the learners can be able to have a constant pulse in their head as the melody is playing. And always do this repeatedly. After you get to the end, repeatedly. Most rhythm work are handled when we use repetition.
Gabriel, please check your audio again.
Okay, sorry. Sorry for that. Let me check. Can you hear me now?
Gabriel.
You can hear me? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I was saying that ensure that you learners are able to grasp the constant beat as they clap the rhythms. Ensure so that when you play a melody, for them to identify the beat pattern, for them to identify the note values, their foundation in the constant beat is very strong. Their foundation is very strong. So I'm going to play for you a song where I start first with the constant beats, then the melody follows. So I'll urge you for you also to be doing the same. First, you start with establishing a constant beat, and then you ensure that now the learners can be able to identify the beat pattern, and also the learners can be able to identify the note values. So let me share a melody. This melody will be in a 3-beat pattern. Good, that's a melody for 3/4. Now I can go ahead and play a melody in 4/4 time. Thank you. That's a melody in 4/4 time. I will be sharing these melodies with you also. You can be using them as, for example, with the learners, and also ensure that the learners have the strong foundation in the beat pulse, because that is what rhythm is first, is the pulse. If a learner cannot maintain a steady tempo, kindly spend more time with them so that you can work with them and see how you can improve on them. So as I wind up on my presentation, use observation as one of the assessment tools. Observation is one of the assessment tools in this section. Rhythm. Observe, how does the learner clap the rhythm? Does the learner understand how to draw the note symbols? Spend time with them and show them how to draw these note symbols. Spend time with them as they interpret the note symbols with the French rhythm names. If the French rhythm names are giving them problems, kindly substitute them with words which have the same syllabic division as the rhythm they are clapping. So thank you so much for being here with me. I'll now take it back to Naima to take us to the next section. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Gabriel, for your wonderful presentation. I'm sure life for our teachers has been made easier, especially when it comes to teaching.